Viral clip after she made a foul play, Griner appears to mouth something rather controversial. It might be, though we don't know, trash and possibly fucking white girl. Others have suggested it might be trash and fucking whack call. We don't know what she's mouthing, but she seems to, have a mouth on her and not exactly be in the gratitude space. Griner herself hasn't commented. Now, why is that? If you were being accused of making racist statements, I think you'd want to clear that up quickly. You'd race to the cameras and put out a statement on X to say, I said fucking whack call.
Megyn Kelly just delivered the most brutal takedown of Brittney Griner's career. After viral footage showed Griner possibly mouthing racial slurs about Caitlin Clark, Kelly asked the one question that destroyed Griner completely. Why hasn't she denied it?
Thing to see these men running in track meets, and clearly they're faster than the women and they can jump higher than the women, to no one's surprise. But it's another thing entirely to see them competing in rugby or ice hockey or field hockey or
physical
boxing. Boxing, for God's sake. If we're going to allow that, we'll allow.
The silence is deafening, and Kelly's analysis exposed exactly why Griner won't speak up about these accusations, which is more damning. The viral footage of Griner possibly saying racial slurs, or her complete silence when given the chance to deny it. Megyn Kelly just exposed Brittney Griner in the most devastating way possible, and the silence that followed tells you everything you need to know about what really happened. Kelly didn't need to scream or make wild accusations. She simply asked the obvious question that nobody else had the courage to ask. If you were being accused of making racist statements, wouldn't you want to clear that up immediately? The viral footage that started this whole controversy shows Griner appearing to mouth something after making a foul play during a game involving Caitlin Clark. Lip readers and social media analysts have suggested she might have said trash and white girl, or possibly trash and whack call. The video quality makes it impossible to know for certain what she said, but what we do know for certain is how she's responded to the accusations. Kelly's analysis cut straight to the heart of the matter. She pointed out that if someone were falsely accused of making racist statements, the normal human response would be to immediately deny those accusations. You'd race to the cameras, put out a statement on social media, call a press conference, anything to clear your name and set the record straight. But Griner has done none of those things.
Brittney Griner was caught on tape during a game with the Indiana Fever, dropping racial slurs against Caitlin Clark. I mean, pretty obviously doing so.
Exact fouls that we were talking about earlier today.
And it doesn't take a lot of genius to lip read Brittney Griner, whose voice, by the way, is about as low as mine is, calling her trash and an effing white girl. Now, of course, if Caitlin Clark had ever suggested the same in reverse, using black as opposed to white in that sentence, that'd be the end of her WNBA career. But Brittney Griner is going strong. It's totally fine.
The silence is absolutely deafening. Griner has had multiple opportunities to address these accusations, and she's chosen to remain completely quiet. That's not the behavior of someone who's been falsely accused of something serious. That's the behavior of someone who knows that speaking up might make things worse for themselves. Kelly suggested a possible reason for Griner's silence that's absolutely brilliant in its simplicity. Maybe Griner is worried that someone in the crowd or on the bench was recording during that moment. In today's world, everyone has a phone and everyone records everything. If Griner comes out and claims she said whack call, but there's clear audio evidence that she said something else, she'd be caught in a lie on top of the original controversy. The strategic thinking behind Kelly's analysis shows exactly why she's one of the most effective media personalities in the business. She didn't need to make definitive claims about what Griner said or didn't say. She simply pointed out that Griner's behavior in response to the accusations is more telling than any lip-reading analysis could ever be. This whole situation also highlights the broader context of Griner's relationship with America and American values. Kelly mentioned that Griner has been known for kneeling during the national anthem and expressing dissatisfaction with what America represents. That background makes the racial accusation even more significant because it fits into a pattern of behavior and attitudes.
Brittney Griner swap.
Well, thanks for having me, Megyn. Look, we should start off by saying these issues are very difficult when you're dealing with family members who literally, I think, will do anything to get their loved ones back, and I think that's appropriate. I've thought long and hard about this hostage process, and it's really important that the families always stay independent from government. Government certainly doesn't want to have a slippery slope of doing something that encourages regimes like Putin's regime to somehow start grabbing people and using them as a weapon in negotiations. Certainly, we know that if that happens, they'll just start grabbing Americans wherever they can and then start with demands. But I think, in particular, this Griner.
The contrast between how different people handle accusations is particularly striking. When public figures are falsely accused of saying something controversial, they typically respond immediately and forcefully. They provide context, they clarify their actual words, and they make it clear that they've been misunderstood or misrepresented. Griner's complete silence suggests she can't provide that kind of clarification. Kelly's analysis also touched on the broader implications of this controversy for the WNBA and its relationship with fans. The league has been experiencing unprecedented growth thanks largely to Caitlin Clark's impact, but incidents like this threaten to damage that progress. When players are accused of making racial comments about the very star who's driving increased attention and revenue, it creates exactly the kind of negative publicity the league can't afford. The timing of this controversy is particularly problematic because it comes during a period when the WNBA desperately needs positive media coverage and mainstream acceptance. Griner's alleged comments and subsequent silence create a narrative that suggests some players resent the attention Clark receives rather than embracing the opportunities that attention creates for everyone in the league. Kelly's media background gives her a unique perspective on how public relations crises should be handled. She understands that silence in the face of serious accusations almost always makes the situation worse. If Griner had immediately come forward with a clear explanation of what she actually said, this story probably would have died quickly. Instead, her silence has allowed speculation and criticism to build for days. The technical aspect of the video evidence adds another layer to this controversy. While the footage isn't clear enough to definitively prove what Griner said, it's clear enough to show that she said something while looking in Clark's direction after the foul. That combination of visual evidence and behavioral context makes the accusations impossible to dismiss outright. Kelly's analysis also highlighted how this controversy fits into broader cultural and political discussions about race, privilege, and accountability. The suggestion that a black player might have made racial comments about a white player challenges typical narratives and forces people to confront uncomfortable questions about prejudice and bias. The prisoner exchange context that Kelly mentioned in relation to Griner adds another dimension to this story. Griner was literally rescued from international imprisonment through extraordinary diplomatic efforts, yet her alleged comments suggest ongoing resentment toward American society and culture. That contradiction makes her silence even more problematic. Media's handling of this story has been particularly interesting because most outlets have been reluctant to cover the accusations aggressively. Kelly's willingness to address the controversy directly and ask obvious questions shows the kind of journalism that mainstream sports media has been avoiding. The impact on Clark's reputation and career is another aspect that Kelly's analysis highlighted. If these accusations are true, it means one of the league's veteran players was making racial comments about the player who's single-handedly elevating the WNBA's profile and financial success. That kind of toxicity could seriously damage the league's growth trajectory. Kelly's point about potential audio evidence is particularly smart because it addresses the reality of modern technology. Every phone in that arena was potentially recording, and clear audio could surface at any time. Griner's silence suggests she might be worried about exactly that possibility. The behavioral analysis that Kelly provided is more damaging than any definitive proof could be. She didn't need to prove what Griner said. She simply pointed out that Griner's response to the accusations tells us everything we need to know about the truth of the situation. The broader implications for WNBA culture are significant because this controversy suggests that some players might harbor resentment toward Clark that goes beyond normal competitive rivalry. If racial animosity is part of the equation, it could seriously damage the league's efforts to build mainstream appeal and acceptance. Kelly's background as a lawyer gives her a unique understanding of how evidence and credibility work in high-stakes situations. She knows that silence in the face of serious accusations is almost always interpreted as an admission of guilt, especially when the accused person has every opportunity and incentive to speak up. The contrast with how other controversies have been handled is particularly telling. When players are falsely accused of misconduct, they typically respond immediately through multiple channels. Griner's complete radio silence suggests she doesn't have a credible explanation that she's comfortable sharing publicly. The impact on team chemistry and league relationships is another aspect that Kelly's analysis touched on. If Griner did make racial comments about Clark, it creates tension that extends far beyond individual players to affect the entire competitive and cultural environment of the league. Kelly's media savvy allows her to understand the strategic considerations that might be influencing Griner's silence. She recognizes that sometimes the best legal advice is to say nothing, but she also understands that following that advice in this situation creates its own problems for Griner's reputation and credibility. The technical limitations of lip reading analysis work in Kelly's favor because they allow her to focus on behavioral evidence rather than trying to prove definitively what was said. The uncertainty about the exact words makes Griner's silence even more suspicious because she could easily clarify the situation if she had an innocent explanation. The cultural implications of this controversy extend beyond basketball to broader discussions about race relations and professional accountability. Kelly's analysis touches on these themes without getting bogged down in political arguments or ideological positions. The timing of Kelly's commentary was particularly effective because it came after Griner had multiple opportunities to address the accusations. The longer Griner remained silent, the more Kelly's questions about that silence became relevant and damaging. The impact on fan perception and league marketing is another aspect that Kelly's analysis highlighted. Casual fans who are just discovering the WNBA through Clark's popularity don't want to hear about racial tensions and controversial comments. They want to see great basketball and positive storylines. The prisoner exchange angle that Kelly referenced becomes even more relevant when you consider the resources and political capital that were expended to secure Griner's freedom. The United States literally traded Victor Bout, an arms dealer convicted of conspiracy to kill Americans, to bring Griner home. Her apparent ingratitude and continued resentment make her alleged racial comments even more problematic. Kelly's analysis of the diplomatic implications was particularly insightful because it highlighted how Griner's behavior reflects poorly on America's foreign policy decisions. When you rescue someone from international imprisonment and they respond by making racial comments about fellow Americans, it raises questions about whether those rescue efforts were worth the cost. The arms dealer who was released in exchange for Griner's freedom wasn't just any criminal. He was someone whose weapons were used to kill Americans and allies around the world. The moral weight of that exchange makes Griner's alleged comments about Clark even more offensive and ungrateful. Kelly's background in legal analysis allows her to understand the broader implications of this prisoner exchange and how it relates to Griner's current behavior. The fact that extraordinary diplomatic efforts were made to secure her freedom should create some sense of obligation to represent America positively, not make racial comments about fellow citizens. The strategic timing of when this controversy emerged is also significant because it comes during a period when the WNBA is trying to capitalize on increased mainstream attention. Griner's alleged comments threaten to undermine all the positive momentum that Clark has created for the league. Kelly's media experience gives her insight into how these types of controversies typically unfold. She understands that early responses are crucial for managing public perception, and Griner's complete silence suggests either terrible public relations advice or an inability to provide a credible alternative explanation. The economic implications of this controversy are substantial because they could affect the WNBA's ability to maintain the growth trajectory that Clark has created. Sponsors, broadcasters, and casual fans don't want to be associated with racial tensions and controversial comments. Kelly's analysis of the video evidence was particularly effective because she acknowledged its limitations while focusing on the behavioral responses that are much more clear and definitive. Griner's silence speaks louder than any lip-reading analysis ever could. The comparison to other high-profile figures who have faced similar accusations is particularly damaging for Griner because it shows how unusual her response has been. Most public figures immediately address racist allegations, regardless of whether they're true or false. Kelly's understanding of crisis management and public relations allows her to recognize that Griner's approach has been counterproductive from every possible angle. Even if she's innocent, her silence has created more damage than any clarification could have caused. The impact on the WNBA's relationship with mainstream media is another factor that Kelly's analysis highlighted. This controversy creates exactly the kind of negative storyline that could drive away casual coverage and attention from major sports outlets. The timing of this controversy in relation to the broader political and cultural climate makes it even more significant. Discussions about race and privilege are particularly sensitive right now, and Griner's alleged comments inject those tensions directly into the WNBA's growth story. Kelly's conclusion that Griner's silence speaks volumes is probably the most damaging aspect of this entire analysis. She didn't need to make definitive claims about guilt or innocence. She simply pointed out that innocent people don't typically respond to serious accusations by saying nothing at all. Megyn Kelly just destroyed Brittney Griner without even trying. The simple question about why Griner won't deny the racial slur accusations exposed everything we need to know. Innocent people don't stay silent when accused of racism. The silence speaks louder than any evidence ever could. Hit that like button and subscribe for more truth-telling moments.